Windows XP released almost 25 years ago, and many people still regard it as the best version of Windows that has ever released. But official support from Microsoft ended all the way back in 2014. So in this video, we're going to see if you can still use Windows XP in 2025. The version of Windows XP that I'll be installing is the professional x64 version, which allows me to use 64-bit programs, which is a good thing because we can use more than 4 GB of RAM and have better support for modern apps. Also, I will not be using XP in a virtual machine. I'll be running it on real hardware so that I can truly feel the XP experience. Installing Windows XP from a USB stick is quite finicky, so I ran out and bought a blank CD. I then took the Windows XP ISO and used a program called Nlight to slipstream SATA drivers into the ISO. The reason I have to do this is because Windows XP never supported SATA drives and my hard drive connects to a SATA interface, meaning if I try to install Windows XP to it, the installer wouldn't detect it. However, AMD released SATA drivers so that Windows can detect SATA drives. So I got the AMD SATA drivers from a website, used Nlight to slipstream the drivers into the ISO, then let it create a bootable ISO with the drivers integrated. Then I unboxed my blank CD and burned the ISO to it. Once it was done, I rebooted into JParted. I used it to create a new partition on my hard drive where I can install Windows XP to. Then I can boot into the CD and access the Windows XP setup where it could detect my SATA drive correctly. The drivers actually worked. So I sat there as it slowly started copying files from the disk and moving on to the second stage of installation where it asked me for the time, product key and username. Then it was one last reboot and I finally made it to the Windows XP desktop. But I realized there was a problem. I couldn't access the internet. I checked Device Manager and found out that I had no Ethernet drivers and I couldn't download the drivers without accessing the internet. So I did the next best thing. I booted into Linux where I could get the hardware IDs, find the correct drivers, and then copy over the drivers to my XP partition. I also copied over Supermium, which is a browser we'll talk about in a second. After a quick reboot, I ended up back in XP. I went into Device Manager and manually installed the Ethernet drivers. Now I can finally access the internet. For the browser, I'm using Supermium. It's a modern Chromium-based web browser that supports modern websites very well, as it's based on Chromium. It runs very fast compared to Internet Explorer or an older version of Firefox. Using Supermium, I downloaded my GPU drivers from AMD's website, but the display driver installation kept failing because AMD didn't sign that driver, which is a requirement to install a driver on Windows XP. I did some digging and found the display drivers from Microsoft's update catalog, from which I could install the drivers manually. After a quick reboot, I was able to set the resolution to that of my monitor's native res, which is 1080p. Now, the only thing I was missing was my sound driver. OBS Studio, which I use for recording, does not, has never, and will never support Windows XP, which is a bummer as it's the easiest way for me to screen record with acceptable quality. I tried recorders like HyperCam 2 and Cam Studio, but they aren't as effective as OBS's. Windows XP's interface is very customizable. With a bunch of different themes, you can truly make Windows XP your own. Then I downloaded Legacy Update. Legacy Update is a tool that allows older versions of Windows to fetch and install existing updates and security patches. Look at all these updates available. That's almost 14 years worth of updates ready to be installed. Legacy Update was also able to find my sound driver, which I wasn't able to find by myself. I let the installer run for a couple minutes, quick reboot later, and I was on a fully updated Windows XP, now with sound. For games, I went with Minecraft Java Edition. It's a bit of a complicated situation. The latest version of Java that supports Windows XP is Java 8, and the latest version of Minecraft that supports Java 8 is Minecraft version 1.16.5. So I installed that and played. It ran reasonably well due to my graphics card. There are ways to get the newest version working, but they're very complicated and honestly not worth it. I installed Microsoft Office 2007 as it's the newest version that supports Windows XP Service Pack 2. It works well and is still very usable for many tasks. So that was me using Windows XP in 2025. If you made it this far, that means you enjoyed the video. Like the video if you liked it, dislike if you disliked it, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this.